here with the CEO of Smack Technologies, CEO and co-founder of Smack Technologies, Andy Markoff, and it is great to be here. Now, the world recognizes that AI is the most powerful force of our generation today, okay? And unlike most people that are sitting on the sidelines, all right, and they are just, watching the shift happen, former Marine Raider Andy Markoff, who I actually served with before, is building this something called the Iron Man overlay for the future of war. We're talking about decision dominance, the tech that allows our commanders to think and and act faster than any adversary on Earth. Today, we're going to look at the 2027 timeline and the leadership required to win that race. Andy, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm psyched to chat about this with you. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I'm very psyched about it too. It was great when we were able to reconnect and realize we could make this happen. Super pumped about it. I'm going to go ahead and read Andy's bio to you guys so you understand where he's coming from. But first of all, I want to say welcome to everyone in the chat. I want to say also welcome to our new members. I saw that out in the chat. Very excited for you guys to join the membership. And you're joining what many people say is the greatest chat on YouTube. You guys make that happen. That's not me. So I'm a happy member of the team in that regard. So quickly, by way of introduction for Andy's bio, Andrew Markoff is the CEO and co-founder of Smack Technologies. He's a Princeton-educated Marine Raider with over a decade of military service. Andy held roles as a Marine Special Operations Officer, a fires instructor at MOTS 1, and a Special Operations Forces J3 during the Battle of Mosul against ISIS, completing 4 combat deployments across Iraq and Afghanistan. Before co-founding Smack with fellow Marine Raider Clint Alanis, Andrew worked in operations and strategy at Palantir, where he saw firsthand the gap between what warfighters needed and what existing AI technology could deliver. So again, so great to have you here. And there's so much material here for us to discover and talk about. I'm really excited for the audience. Let's get right into it. So now, you and I talked about a little bit before about this pivot, and you're in 2nd Marine Raider Battalion. You served all these tours, and then you went and you're the CEO of a company, founding a company, such a big shift. And I know it wasn't as quick as I'm making it sound right there, but what would you say is the #1 lesson from the tip of the spear that helps you lead a tech company through the fastest industrial revolution in history?
No, that's a great question. I've actually thought about this a lot. I mean, it's early in my Marine Corps career, I think it was the thing I hated the most about the Marine Corps, but I think since getting out, it's the thing I've appreciated the most. It's the whole jack of all trades, or be a really broad generalist. And I think, I remember being a 2nd lieutenant, rifle platoon commander. You come back from deployment, no one got lost, you didn't do anything really bad, and then they're like, okay, now you're a mortar platoon commander. And then you're the second you can not have rounds land on main side in 29 Palms, well, now you're going down to MOTS 1 and you're going to teach pilots how to drop bombs really close to people running around on the ground. It's just the second you're not dangerous at your job, it's go do something else. And I was
yeah, I always felt that way, didn't it?
Yeah, it's I just want to get to the point where I don't where I'm not dangerous at the one thing that I do. So it drove me crazy because I feel I wanted to specialize, but I feel what you end up with as a Marine officer, whether you're infantry, special operations, anywhere, is you become a good generalist and you're good at integrating different capabilities, not just within the Marine Corps, but within the Joint Force. And I think that applies to running a tech company or doing things broadly, because most really hard problems are not single discipline. I mean, they're multidisciplinary, and if you can't lead if you don't know how to integrate all the different things are going to have to come together to solve that problem. And I feel I learned how to do that in the Marine Corps. I learned to value it when I got out in the commercial sector. And I think right now, that's a lot of what I think helps me do the job that I'm doing, is to be able to be deep enough across a broad range of things to figure out how to integrate them towards a solution without being, super, super deep in any one.
Yeah, that sounds really important. That is the Marine officer in the Marine period, jack of all trades. And so some people will say find your niche, and it sounds like you're saying it's important, obviously, to have a niche and to have expertise in something and skill set, but being able to have that broad knowledge also can serve you very well as well too.
I think so. And I mean, I think at the end of the day, what we're working on, what you're doing, the Marine, you need specialists, you need generalists. Like you need both. Like you can't solve a hard problem with like a fleet of generalists just the way you can't solve it with like, I would say like a fleet of experts. You need all of the
Right.
pieces. I think that in leadership, you have to become a generalist even if you weren't. So ideally you come from like deep domain expertise at something. And I think like if you're going to step up into a leadership role, you've got to be able to broaden that experience and learn how to integrate all the different disciplines. And I think that's kind of, some people kind of stay in the specialist track and they go up and they become better and better and better to really
Right.
be expert in that role. That's highly valuable. Like we need those at SMAC too. But I think if you want to lead, you've got to be an integrator and you've got to kind of have the range in order to do
See,
that.
this is a great, and that's a great point for my audience, for this audience, because, one of the things we do here, we talk a lot about leadership and how, being a leader, you have more agency, you can make more money, you have more options. And everybody out there, everybody in the chat, everyone out there watching, you're all leaders in some way, shape, or form. But, having that broad knowledge and how to integrate things is so important. Being an enabler, being someone who empowers people, and, someone that is quote unquote, as Admiral McCraven, Navy SEAL commander of SOCOM, when I was a battalion commander, said, be the action officer for your team. Like, make things happen for them. And it sounds like that what you're doing, Andy. And, everything you're talking about too, it reminded me of, I took a look at some of the things you guys are doing with Omega Fires, and it kept on, as you're saying things, it reminded me of Omega Fires, integrating, all these different things from ConOps to creating almost like a sync matrix, but with AI, but incredible. So even from your own personal philosophy, I'm seeing this distilled down in what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think, we think about what we're building as being a joint force capability. And I mean, not, I don't know, I don't know how interesting government acquisitions is to everyone, but I mean, at the end of the day, like the government acquisition program is set up to be service specific. It's one of the biggest problems with their acquisition system in general. And one of the reasons we're missing a lot of the capabilities we need is that we only buy things by service, and there's not like a joint program office that builds joint capes. As we
Right.
look at the future of warfare, it's becoming increasingly joint, and not just joint but coalition. Like there's no winning in a lot of these scenarios with like our partners and allies, and you need capabilities that know how to pull not just different staff functions together, but like different services together, different nations militaries together. And I just think that the real gap is the integration problem across the
Yeah.
joint force and across the coalition. And that's
Yeah.
kind of
This is
that's kind
incredible.
of the backdrop of like, what do we need to build? Like we have to build to that spec.
Right. Right. I mean, it's a daunting task. There's so much there, but I think, as all of us see things play out on the world stage, and everyone knows here on the channel, I do everything in strategy. And I believe that strategy is woven throughout all parts of our lives, from the strategic, operational to your personal life, right? So from strategic to company, team level, organizational level, then all the way down to our personal lives. And if you don't have a strategy, there's no way you're going to win. If you don't then execute that strategy vigorously as well too. But as you're saying these things, creating the joint interoperability across all domains and across partners and allies and other nations, it's a big task. But it sounds like, as we're talking about this, the things that you're building with AI can do this, and before we go down a whole other rabbit hole there, but that's what it sounds like. And I'm sure we'll get to it, but that sounds like on the larger scale, what you're doing as well.
It's certainly what we're trying to build. I mean, it's a
Okay.
massive elephant, and we're certainly eating it in tiny pieces. But I think I think we have the right team to figure out what pieces to eat and what order to provide. The most.
Wow. Write that one down, everybody. Write that one down. It's a massive element, but we have the right team to eat the pieces, how to divide it and eat it in what order it should be. Something to that effect. I got to
Yeah.
clip that. That was really good. Definitely really good. All right. So one of the things, I mean, I know I want to give everybody a quick, taste of what you do and what SMAC's doing, your personal philosophy, because as I've said so many times in this channel, that our thoughts precede our actions, our thoughts and our beliefs. If you want to change your life, you want to change your business, you have to start first of all with the way you're thinking, your strategy, your belief system, and then you have to take, huge amounts of action, accurate and effective action to make the change. Let's talk about transition for a moment. So when you transitioned from the military, and I know this personally, I've spoken with, head NFL coaches that will liken the end of a NFL player's career to what special operators and career military go through when they leave the military, this loss of identity and the struggles we all have gone through. I mean, some to lesser greater degrees, but I know I felt it as well too. You feel adrift. And I want to ask you, what was the biggest personal struggle you faced when you moved on from leading Marines in combat to leading engineers in a boardroom?
Yeah, no, I mean it was. I feel like philosophically you hear that transition's gonna be tough. You're like, oh, but like I'll be fine. And
Right.
I would say that it was tough, and I wasn't fine for a really long time. And I think the hardest. I mean, I remember getting out from a. I mean, I mean, I'd gotten a chance to do a lot of the things I wanted to do in the Marine Corps. I mean, obviously, I think all of us have frustrations about like inefficiencies. I mean, a lot of the reason for SMAC was like this problem about like how do we make decisions and and how that happens, being frustrated, being like, I'm never going to fix this inside the Marine Corps. I need to go out, build technology, bring it back in. So, I mean, I remember like stepping off with that in mind. And so I think I had kind of a North Star of, I'm going to go, I'm going to learn what tech is. I had no idea like what that even meant, but I was like, I'm going to go into the tech space. I'm going to figure it out. And then like, maybe I'll come back to the defense space and like come back
Right.
with technology to help fix these problems. So, I mean, I stepped off with that, but then like you get out and you're trying to think through like, well, what like specifically would I work on? There's so much going on that I feel like for my whole career I'd had this. You have your mission, right? You're like you're here, to put your life on the line in service of like national security, and it's like very easy to understand. For me, it was like the only thing I'd ever wanted to do was to kind of be a warrior and do this. And then you're stepping away from that, and now you have to
And it's
figure
a
out.
massive vision quest too,
Yeah,
involving death, life, making you going through crazy hard gates
yeah.
of fear, all kinds of things. So yeah, so I see what you're saying. Keep
And,
going, please. I'm sorry.
no, no, and so I think like it's like you have to figure out what the mission is, and I think not just what the mission is, but there's like the thing that was so amazing about MARSOC and the Marine Corps was just you have like the kind of physical component of the job, with your team, and then it kind of like the mental component. And I found that it is really hard to replicate that when you get out. So if you're trying to like you not only do you have to find your mission, but you're trying to experience that mission in a way that's like what you're used to. And I think
Yeah.
the hard
Yeah.
piece is you're never going to experience any
Right.
mission the way you
Right.
used to. You have to
Yeah.
get ready to like experience. You have to be open to. I'm not going to find something that is the same, but I could find something that's equally satisfying in a different way. And it took me a long
Right.
time to be
Right.
open to
That's
that.
gold though. That's gold for so many, young service members out there transitioning. That's great for so many people in life. Understanding that, what you did before, even when you love that thing, if it's changed, you just have to understand that what you're going to do next won't be the same as what it was, especially if that was a part of your identity. But I think that is gold for so many of the young veterans out there and young service members looking to get out, and just how what you're saying can impact them too, and to realize it's okay, you're going to feel this, you're going to go through a grieving process. I don't know about you, but I had a grieving process. I didn't realize it until a friend of mine, fellow Marine, was retired, told me. He said, you will be grieving. He said, I was grieving. And he said, have you experienced that? I said, my God, that is how that's how you define it.
Yeah.
I remember the first time, like, a long time ago, when I left First Marine Special Operations Battalion. We were First Force Recon. I came home from a combat deployment. I pulled a string, and I was Alpha Company, First MSOP, First Marine Special Operations Battalion out in California. And I remember when I left the unit, I remember I almost had a heart attack. It was such, I couldn't believe this was happening. Spent so much time, so much energy, and building up relationships. And there's so much, connection, love, and all these things.
Yeah.
But boy, oh boy, I mean, you're triggering memories in me right
Yeah.
now. So
It,
please keep going.
I mean, it's rough. And I think, I didn't plan how it actually ended up working out. I mean, I think really like I ended up wandering around. So I went to Palantir. I did that for a little bit. I learned a lot. I worked at a chemical company startup called Origin Materials, like, in the chemical industry. I don't know anything about, I don't know
Right.
anything about chemistry. I don't know anything about it, like chemical
Yeah,
engineering.
you're a really smart guy though.
Um,
Let's be honest.
they're like, you can live in Tahoe and work as a mountain guide on the weekend, and you can do this during the week. I was like, I'm there tomorrow. And so because I
Perfect.
was in the space, like maybe I'll be a mountain guide. But I mean, I ended up like the Origin kind of satisfied the mental curiosity, but I wanted the physical piece of like, dragging stuff around in the mountains in the snow. So I mean, I kind of did both. but they just didn't really, I mean, it wasn't a career. It still didn't like bring me the satisfaction I was looking for. And I feel like I just wandered around trying different things and finally stumbled back into, well, here's what I'm actually supposed to do, like at Smack. And I think, if I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't actually change anything about the process other than just being open to, this is going to take a long time. You need to do a bunch of different things to get different bites of the apples to figure out what you really want. And you need to be open to it, A, taking time, and B, not being the same as the thing you had before, but being open to having the satisfaction on a different mission in a different way and being comfortable with it being a different scenario, and you're not replicating the same thing, but you can value it equally and be equally satisfied by it.
And that's a fantastic wrap up of that too, and just a big summation of it. Before we get into the Iron Man overlay into some of the intense tech you guys are developing and the way it's going to change the future of warfighting, because I know everybody's coming here for that as well too, and we're going to get to it, everyone. But I want to ask you a question too. How much do you feel it's important? And this question is based upon my own experiences, but also upon the people I've coached, my clients. I've had several clients, from an artist, musician, to a tech entrepreneur, actually, that had a big exit, that each time it happened, there's such a cliff and a drop off. Like they just feel like they accomplished this big thing, and there's a real letdown. They feel like a drift. How much do you think that is something after such a high point? I mean, 4 combat tours. I saw you in action out there. I mean, the J3 in Mosul, this is huge, man. I can imagine all these things, informed what you're doing right now too. But how much would you say finding a new mission and a new vision, something really compelling, is important to making sure you don't stay down the valley in the depths and the depression and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I think mission is really important, but I think the way I kind of think about like this is, there's like times in your life where you have like the very clear mission and you're like exactly the right person to work on it at that time, and like you do the thing and then it's over. And I feel like you can't always be on the mission that you were like perfectly made to do like forever, like because I mean, A, it's not sustainable. B, once you do one thing right, I feel like to continue to be useful, you kind of have to go back and work on yourself and wander around and figure out new stuff. And so to me, there's this like, coming out of Mosul and kind of like, the peak of the Marine Corps career, like I needed to go be an individual contributor and wander around for a while and like develop new skills, develop new things to come back and be useful on a mission again. I mean, and I frankly had like a 7-year hiatus between
Right.
that and what feels like, the mission now at Smack. And I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this if I hadn't gone, wandered, gained skills that I didn't have, kind of like, almost like in the shadows, and then come back. And I feel like that's a really important cycle. And I don't think
Yeah.
you want to stay in that cycle forever or the other. I think you kind of move between the two.
And so, I mean, I think it's just to sum it up for people out there, you're okay. You're okay. If you feel like you're adrift right now, hear what Andy's saying to you, that, this is part of the process. Now you want to find something eventually, but this is a search. And even in, look at the template for major movie blockbusters. There's a search period where, the hero is searching around, trying to figure things out, find the way, find the solution. But, it sounds a lot like it's okay. Just remember that, you're not going to always be on mission. Like Andy's saying, you're not going to always feel like I've got this all figured out. There's going to be a build time after the last thing you just did. And sometimes you're healing too. So all those things can be true. And, and we try to talk real all the way from, everybody knows, from the War Room, when we had the War Room podcast, to the way we talk straight about what's happening in current events, and then here as well too. And, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be healing. It's okay to be hurting. It's okay to have had a stumble and a fall, but you got to get back up. You got to always get back up as fast as you can and get moving again. So, and, talking about your new mission, talking about mission, you shifted from a uniform and, a little bit out of it, to a CEO of a major company, freaking company. How do you maintain the ferocious sense of duty, like the sense of duty you have, while navigating the civilian business world? That's a whole other animal.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, what I always wanted to do, I kind of come back to like, I grew up, I always wanted to be like a warrior. Clint and I talked about this too. I mean, I feel like both of us kind of like identify, like that was like our life purpose, which
Right.
is, you back to the transition, you're like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? This feels like being able to come back and work in support of like all the people I care about in the military and like all like
Love
the
it.
mission that I like always cared about, but from an area where like I feel like we can actually help, like make
Yeah.
lives better, fix major
Yeah.
problems, kind of like from the outside. And again, it's not because on the inside people don't want to fix stuff. It's just a lot of this is a technology problem, and so it feels. I feel like this feels like the right thing because of the mission actually still being the same. We're just working on it from the other side. And so I think, from a company values perspective, I mean, really, it's like our first one is like we're here to serve. And specifically, we're here to serve like in the national security space.
Yeah.
And I think that that's always been, for Clint and myself, the thing that we've always wanted to do. And I think a lot of like getting out has been finding a way back to how do I work on this, but from a different, from a different angle.
See, and I think that's so refreshing for so many people out there to hear this up and coming AI tech startup, defense tech startup that's going to change the future of war has this sense of mission and purpose, everybody. So all of us, you're on the journey with me here, learning from Andy about this. And how good is it to know the deep sense of purpose and mission and contribution that they lead with and they're building this company with? I think it's very refreshing as, people tend to get exhausted and they get cynical about big corporations and things like that. But here's an agile, lean, cutting edge tech, defense tech startup, you guys, Smack Technologies, with a huge sense of mission and purpose and service to those that you served with in the military. I mean, just very refreshing, very inspiring. I mean, makes me want to go nuts and do something, something to help somebody out right now and get involved. That's fantastic, man. So, well, let's get into it. Let's get into the main event here, and let's talk about, and everybody out in the audience out there. Hey, if you have not subscribed yet, okay, we only have about 15% of the people that watch are subscribed, and it's going to help out the mission a lot if you guys are subscribing. But right now, if you know someone that's into defense tech, okay, and they are very interested in this, you want to know about the future of warfare, you want to know what's going on right now with Iran and all that stuff like that, okay? We're not going to really talk about that so much, but what's happening in warfare, Andy's going to jump into the Iron Man overlay here, his tech from Smack Technologies, and we're going to get into it. So share this with him right now. Tell your friends. Get him on here, okay? Chat, let me know you're awake out there. You guys tracking everything. Give me a 1 in the chat right now. I want to make sure everybody's ready to rock and roll. This is my little bell. Ding, 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 ding. We're about to go into some hardcore stuff here, okay? Give me a 1 in the chat if you guys are alive and well and tracking on everything. All right, and we're going to get into it here now. So, Andy, the Iron Man overlay. So, this is the thing that caught my attention. It was in one of your videos, okay? Imagine having seconds to integrate and direct thousands of land, air, and sea-based drones. Okay, this hit me for a minute. This was conjuring an image in my mind. I thought this was so powerful. It conjures the image of future war. Iron Man, Star Wars, you name it, any future tech type thing out there. But this was incredibly powerful to hear this because it's something where you're thinking, oh my God, he's talking about like how things are going to be in the future. We're not just talking about his decision dominance, but actually all these things in short amount of time we have to coordinate, we have to bring to bear, or we could lose. We could direct all these assets the wrong thing at the wrong time. And then our adversary, maybe China, okay?
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
could do a counterstroke on us. They could counterpunch, well, like when Conor McGregor counterpunched Jose Aldo in the face and ended a legend's career. And that was his making. One sidestep, counterpunch, he made the right move, and that was it. So you're building the AI infrastructure for our military. Investors have committed 32 million, everyone. 32 million he's just raised. This company's only been around for about 18 months, right? Around there. And so how does this Iron Man overlay actually help a commander make a better life or death decision in seconds rather than days?
So I'm dying on.
No, go for it. Go for it. Choke for a minute. I'll keep on talking.
No, this is good.
You good?
Let me grab water.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Hey, so everyone in the chat right now, Andy's going to grab a quick glass of water right now. But if you're tracking the chat, give me a 1. And if you have any questions for Andy, put it in the chat. All right, and I will see. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Good to go, everybody. We're going to get this thing rolling, get Andy back in here in a second. There's a lot to consider here, okay? You guys are about to learn some incredible stuff. I'm pumped. You should be pumped. You guys know, if you've been with me for a while, I geek out, right? We do Jensen Huang, we do Elon Musk, we've done, you name it. We do an alien segment. Andy, you're going to love this. We do the whole UAPs, UFOs. We do that, a little bit of a segment. And I tell everybody, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am not. But hey, I'm just saying, man, if this is real, this is the biggest event ever in the history, man. And we're going to ask you too, what are we going to do about that? Well, how are you going to handle this if they come? Anyway, that's a whole other topic. We'll have you on again for the next one. But let's talk about, so you're building this AI infrastructure for our military, and investors have already committed 32 million. So how does this overlay actually help a commander make better life or death decisions in seconds rather than days?
So I think like probably the first thing to kind of chat through is just, I mean, I know you know this, and probably a lot of the users or the listeners know this, but just to talk about like how the like the space of like what does military decision making even look like. And I think the first piece of this is the military makes decisions on 3 different horizons. There's this kind of like deliberate horizon. What do we do for the next 1 month out to like next 2 years? That looks like, we produce these 3,000 page Word documents and a bunch of PowerPoints that come out about them. And that's kind of like the artifacts that come out of that part of the planning. And then we move into what I call like the execution cycle, which is what do we do for the next 1 to 4 days within the context of that operation or campaign plan, like et cetera.
Right.
That looks like Gantt charts, right? So we're building like very detailed time space sequencing of assets in and out of the theater to do very specific things. And then we get to, dynamic, which I mean, colloquially, I'll say like, oh shit, right now, what are we doing? But it's like literally like within the context of this execution cycle right now, we're executing, things don't go to a plan. I mean, I always say like, I don't know that I ever planned anything that went even 50% according to plan. So when that happens, how do you get back on plan? There are different staffs that plan the deliberate cycle. There's a different staff for the execution cycle. There's a different staff for the dynamic cycle. We all try and like do our best to integrate, but it's really hard to keep it all integrated. And not only do you have those horizons, I mean, you have different warfighting functions, right? You have like your maneuver group, your fires group, your command and control group, like all of those. And there's like staff members for each.
When we're talking like, this could be like 50, 60 people all planning, right? So for everybody, all the laymen in the audience, we're talking like 4 or 5 teams of 5 to 10 people, usually 10 people. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm a little bit dated. You got more current info on all this, but 60 people not talking to each other. The commander knows everything. They're trying to go. Meanwhile, while they're forming these plans, the enemy's already moved on, or the opportunity of the threat's gone. We can't hit it, or the opportunity has ceased to exist. Right?
Exactly. And I think, one of the things that's, the scary, it's, actually, I go to, so on those cycles, right? It takes like, if I'm planning what we're doing for the next 4 months, I mean, it's like a 4-month planning process. When I plan what I do for the next 4 days, it like takes 4 days. I mean, China could put 30,000 troops in Taiwan in 4 days. And when we get like dynamic, right. I mean, the good news is you only have a minute, so it only takes a minute. The bad news is like, Andy's doing math for Marines on like anger, tobacco and energy drinks, and we're just all like hoping for the best.
Yeah, or you're trusting your gut. You're going, I think so, and you go, and
then you hope. And I think the bigger problem is when you get in that dynamic space. So like as a country, we don't have enough munitions. We don't have enough fuel. When we think about like doing this in the Pacific at the longest extent of our kind of like logistics tail, we're under fueled, like under munitioned, and you can't afford to make the types of greedy decisions that I would make when I was at MARSOC about like, well, I just can pull every piece of ordnance off this aircraft because I'll just get another one. You do that 2 days in a row in the Pacific, you run out of ammo and fuel, and then you lose the campaign.
Right. When you're the one with the buck stops with you have to then manage the resources, right?
Yep. And so some of the requirement is, how do you make the optimal decision right now in the dynamic horizon for the campaign? And how do you make it in one theater when you may have to understand the implications in a totally other theater? And so like this
the connection between, let's say, like the Pacific theater and what we're doing in Iran right now, because I saw something on your website or your one of your videos that had a B-roll of not your article, but a B-roll article that was on the video about us only having 25% of the Patriot interceptors we need for the potential conflict in the future. And if I'm misquoting that, just let me know. But I saw something. And so that's very concerning. I think it's very relevant for everybody in the audience who is watching what's going on with Iran, but also knows at the same time, the Iran thing is not just about Iran. It's also about China in some ways, So, I mean, there's a lot of connection here. And we're so lucky to be able to talk to you about this today. It's really exciting stuff. Please keep going.
No, I love it. So that's kind of like the backdrop of like the problem. And so, what do you do about it? I mean, what you need to be able to do is to make decisions in the dynamic space that are informed by campaign level equities and that are optimized for those. You need to be able to do it in, minutes and seconds and not, days and weeks and months. And so what we're building is an AI, frontier AI model. It's not a general purpose large language model, and we can certainly talk about the differences, but it's not the same as the type of model that Anthropic's building or the type of model that OpenAI is building. It's a fundamentally different type of model, but
Okay.
it's a domain-specific model. It doesn't mean, one purpose, hopefully deter, but if required, fight and win World War III. And
Fight and win World War III sounds pretty damn impressive. I mean, this is incredible stuff, man. Keep going, please.
And then really like a suite of applications that allow the users to, I mean, if you think of like ChatGPT allows you to use, OpenAI's foundational model, but like you can chat with it. We build applications that let staff members and people at the front lines do the workflows that they need to do with our model. And that's really the tech is the model plus the apps. And I think that's really what we're delivering today to the warfighters.
It's incredible.
Air Force Marine Corps today.
And right now you have one of the main things is the Omega fires, right? That's one of the main ones. Okay. Yes, I watched some of the videos, and you guys can find out more if you're on LinkedIn and see Smack Technologies. Find Andy on LinkedIn there as well too, and you can talk about some of your other socials as well. But let's talk a little bit more about this, because so as we talk about the tech and we talk about what you're developing, let's talk about also some of the theories and the potential strategic issues we're going to have in the future, like the Davidson window we talked about the other day. So military leaders are worried about 2027 as a potential flashpoint for conflict, not just the AI 2027 that we've covered in this podcast before several times with a few different people, but 2027 is a potential flashpoint for conflict. So Smack Technologies, is Smack Technologies the secret weapon that ensures we're ready for that deadline? What would you say?
I mean, that's certainly what we keep as like our North Star. I mean, I think the reason we started in January 2024, immediately raised a seed pre-product, was just this idea that, if we need to be ready for war in 2027, then we need to have the technology on the stack in 2026. We're like, it's 2024. That's not a lot of time. Like, we need to move. And so I think a lot of our, take your business, even just your business hat on, but like mission hat on, was like, we have to get like this on, like ready and in production before 2027 So, I mean, I guess, sorry, go ahead.
And Andy, when you say you raised the seed pre-product, can you explain that to everybody who's trying to track along?
I mean, it's funny. I didn't know anything about fundraising before it started, and so like I basically just learn as I go by getting shot in the face and like not doing that the next time.
It's the best way.
So we formed the company in January 24. A seed round. I mean, the normal like sequence of fundraising rounds, you hear like pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, Series C. And the easiest way to think about it is they're just different risk buckets. And with different risk buckets, you give up. There's kind of a market rate for how much of the company are you giving up, like how much money can you get, and like how much money you can get is based on, in theory, like how much have you de-risked, and like what do you kind of need to grow. And so like generally the sequence of people would get like a pre-seed, which is like a much smaller check, and then they would raise a seed, and then they would raise a Series A. We were thinking about like what we need to build is going to take a lot of time. We need some like really high quality AI researchers, physicists. And we need to be able to hire them now, which means we need to raise more money than most people would have originally done. Most people would have probably like spent some time, developed some like beta version of the product, then gone out and raised a seed. We're like, we don't have time for that. Like, we just need to see if we can raise it right now. And so we luckily were successful in being able to do that, and then close the Series A in the fall. But
and Series A has already started now.
Yep. And that's
And you already raised 32 million for the seed.
We raised 6 million for the seed, like early 24, and then 26 on the A, so 32 in combined.
Oh, okay. Got it. Congratulations, man. That is a huge deal. Everybody, it's a big deal. And all my budding entrepreneurs out there, I know there are a few of you out there watching. Watch this and rewatch it again. This is the real deal right here. You're getting a great education, and I appreciate you sharing that too, Andy. Because sometimes we have people in the audience that people will come for one thing, people come for another. But you sharing your journey as much as you can is fantastic, really fantastic. It will really serve in so many ways for people. So I thank you for that. And so with this singularity, and we're talking, actually keep going about this. We're talking about, SMAC being the secret weapon that ensures we're ready for that 2027 Davidson window, the potential for conflict.
I think really like the capability that we would provide, and that is differentiated and important. And the key missing thing is the ability to campaign. Like we like as a country are not ready to campaign in a peer level conflict, much less two peer level conflicts, which is like, I mean, in many ways, right, the charter of our military is to be able to fight campaigns in two completely different theaters at the same time. Think back to
Well, we're very focused on shock and awe, right? I mean,
yep. And we haven't had to truly campaign since then. I mean, on that scale, warfare's changed a lot. And I mean, in whatever we can sort out, what do I do right now? We'll sort it out greedily, right? We'll overexpend fuel and ammo to get it done in the moment. The problem is you run out of everything that you need. And it's not just fuel and ammo, right? I mean, like the varsity level thinking is when you go down hard for maintenance, and like, where are the parts? Like that's the really hard piece. And there's no way to look at, if I make these decisions over the next 6 hours, when am I down hard for maintenance? What's the impact of me being down hard maintenance here in some other theater? Like I can't weigh those trade-offs. And that's the real value that I think we'll be able to provide, not just better solutions right now, but better solutions for the campaign, not just in this theater, but for multiple theaters. Like that's the requirement. And
right. So as sexy as it is with, thinking of where do we allocate the drones in 1 second, which is a big part of this, and it's actually real, but it's also even more than that. So everyone understands. There's an old saying, in the military for military professionals, that professionals talk logistics, amateurs talk tactics. Amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics. And that was back to World War II, and probably even well beyond before that as well too. And so, I mean, I think the things you're saying, though, understanding this is how you campaign, managing resources, leading people, making timely decisions, seeing where, having things synchronized, so important. But yeah, it's amazing stuff. I mean, that's a game changer, absolute game changer. Let's speaking of 2027, and speaking of the singularity, and speaking of AI 2027, the different aspects for that. Some researchers are predicting we are just months away from a singularity where AI grows beyond human control. As someone in the trenches, do you think AI 2027, or do you think 2027 is the year that the world changes forever?
I mean, I actually hope I'm right on this. And I would say I've had a lot of conversations with friends about this recently. I mean, I think everyone looks at how well AI writes code, and they're like, oh my God, like we're on the verge of it taking over like everything. I mean, like code is like a really simple task. And I think the things that like AI has done really well, like it's really easy to build like labeled data sets about like what good looks like, and they can train on it. I have not seen anything remotely compelling yet on really difficult long-term, near-term decision-making trade-offs. I don't think we're close. I'm not saying that it won't happen. It doesn't feel imminent to me. And I mean, I'm not simple Marine here. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm actually not wrong on this one, but I mean, we're trying to build to that, but to where, not to, that it takes over the world, but build to where like it's doing really difficult, complex, like time-space decisions,
right?
Near-term trade-offs with long-term reward.
Right. And what would you say, I guess, what would be the controls we could build in? Could we actually build in controls successfully? You hear all these things like, OpenAI, Sam Altman carries the football with him, like the president with the nuclear codes, so you can shut down the, OpenAI. So this might be just hearsay and nonsense, but you hear all these things, and that how AI is pushing back, the big AI models are pushing back, not letting them be shut off. And the AI 2027 scenario is very scary. And if you guys haven't watched that yet in the audience, that's one of my videos somewhere in the archives there. Just scroll through, you'll see it. It's got, some other AI type thumbnail on it. But the point being that they say once the singularity happens and it can, self-improvement happens, it can grow beyond our control where it can hide the newer models, things like that. Can you build controls for these things?
I mean, I certainly think that you can, and I mean, and some of this is like, I mean, even like going back to the military use case and kind of like all the news around Anthropic and fear of
Right, right.
like you turn the autonomy dial on and like run the kill chain autonomously. I mean, related to this, I mean, no one in the Department of War is even talking about wanting to fully automate the kill chain. Like that's like not even a thing. I mean, if you talk to any Cobra pilot and you're like, hey, I'm gonna put a model on your aircraft and it's just gonna strip all the hellfire like off the rails. No one's gonna sign up for that. And so,
Right,
so
right.
I think there's like, given that you build these human touch points to check like what the model can and can't do, or there's like a stop and it requires a human intervention before it like goes to the next step. And I mean, I think that you can certainly build that framework in.
Okay.
And I think, you also, we're very involved, and this is more on the kind of like trust and safety side, on like, vetting the training data, like looking at looking under the hood on how the thing's trained. But to me, like you can put these guardrails in place. Could one of our adversaries not put those guardrails in place? I mean, yes. Um, I think that
But
we'll
then it
probably,
could turn on them too. It could be just totally out of control, bad actor. Yeah.
yep. I mean,
But the point being, you can still wield because the way you train your AI. And I remember you and I were talking about this, but it's like training a child,
yeah.
in some ways, not totally, but it knows what it knows from what you feed it, unless someone puts some bad stuff in there, and and then at least you'll retain control of it. I think I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and talking about that too. So the Department of War recently designated Anthropic as a supply chain risk because of their red lines on lethal AI. As a CEO in this space, and we talked about the safety, but how do you, if you can go more deeply into what happened with that scenario, and then more about the balance of the safety with the absolute necessity of winning the defense tech race
Yeah.
with China.
So I think, I mean, to be honest, I certainly don't pretend to know exactly what was like in, the leadership, like in Anthropic's head when all this
Sure,
was
sure.
happening. Like from like looking at it from the outside. I mean, I think it kind of comes back to what I was saying. The fear that the military wants to just autonomously like let AI run the kill chain, I think is a very unfounded fear. It's not what anyone in the military wants. Like no one's
Got it.
pushing
Okay.
that. So I think some of this is like what happened is I think just like a misunderstanding of intent. I also think there's there's just a lack of understanding, I think in Silicon Valley, of just like what do the end users actually need? How do they actually do operations? How would they even use AI? There's a huge gap in understanding. And so I think with that, with misunderstanding and not knowing, there's fear that like, oh my God, like I know what this model I made is capable of. I have no idea like how they're use it. They might use it for something that it shouldn't be used for. And there's just this fear due to that misunderstanding. I also think, and then I'll kind of move to like, how do you have trust and safety and all that. I also think, though, I do feel very strongly that it is not the tech industry's role to regulate how the government uses the technology that like
Got
we
it.
give
Okay.
it. I look at this as you and I both served. We took an oath of service to serve like honorably in accordance with the rules of engagement, lawful, implementation of warfare, and in that you absolutely need checks on how any technology is used, whether it's 5.56 and F-35 or
Sure.
a
Sure.
model, and that needs to come from someone in uniform. I don't
Right.
it's
I think that's profound. Yeah.
I don't think that it's a job in my seat now to dictate that to the government. So you have to trust the system, and
Right.
system in the system is we have people that like take an oath, and like that's what their role is. Them and like our elected leaders, and I do feel very strongly in that. I mean like, and that to me is one of the problems with what just happened is Lockheed Martin doesn't get to tell the government how to use the F-35. Now, they can say that the F-35 has these operational constraints, and if you go outside of them, like, that's not our fault. All of that's fine, but if the government wants to override it, then the government should be able to override it. and Lockheed's not going to stop them. And I think it's just the same with like with the models. I mean that I think that's kind of to me like the backdrop of what just happened. How
Yeah,
do
I think
you
that's great.
sorry, how do you build so I mean two pieces of like so what do you do? One is human in the loop, right? Let's see you want to have a human in the loop. The issue today is we can't have a human in the loop for everything that a human's in the loop for because we'll be too slow. So the real art of this is where are the low value human touch points where human is in the loop today, where like they don't need to be, and where can we remove them, and how do we bring them back in? I'll come back to, I mean, obviously you were a commander, you've had staffs, you would, say you would give guidance, staff goes and plans, you come back, they brief you on them, you say yes or no and move forward. Basically, we
Right.
should be turning every user into a commander in this sense for whatever their role is that they can constrain, provide guidance to the model. It runs some calculations, like they come back, it gives them options, they audit the options, they say yes or no, tweak this or that. And there's a human touch point along the way, just like you would have a commander have a touch point along the way with the staff. That's like the art and the spec that like the user
Right.
has to be built for.
Speeding everything up, but the final step of the kill chain in some cases. I mean, in other cases, I know some of the fear from in Ukraine was, having a fully automated drone that's like, a suicide well, not suicide, but yeah, I guess so, a kamikaze type drone that's fully automated, seeking its own targets, things like that. I remember back, I think it was 2010 when Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking and all those, the open letter for about AI. But the main thing was not about just AI. It was about AI empowered autonomous weapons systems. And the whole point was like if a warlord in Africa got a hold of these or any other place where that's, semi lawless, they could create genocide because the AI can do scaled killing, and unleashed by itself with very few humans. And I think that was the biggest concern with all of that. But what are your thoughts with that stuff too?
I mean, I certainly think that it's like a valid concern, right? That like, we're not like all of our adversaries and everyone in the world is not going to play by the same ethical rules that the United
Right.
States plays by. And I think that's just the reality. And to me, that puts the bar higher for us too. We have to build applications where like humans can be in there for ethical reasons and still move at an appropriate pace. And our models have to be that much better that we can save time and effectiveness and optimization, despite the fact that for ethical reasons we are going to put a human in there. And
Right.
look, I think that there are parts of, I think there are reasonable, like very small subsets of fighting, a modern conflict where we think of autonomy as a dial, right? That the commander and policy, like the president, that the secretary of war, that the our leaders and combatant commanders can turn that dial in accordance with the rules of engagement of like how much autonomy is appropriate. I think we are always going to have less of it than maybe some of our adversaries. But
Right.
there are
Right.
scenarios where it might be appropriate and reasonable to have that dial really low on the amount of human intervention. But I think like that's I think going to be like an edge case, and I think that's for the combatant commanders, the presidents.
Yeah.
Like,
But I like the image you're conjuring, two things. I like the image you're conjuring of the dial, the scenario of the dial that we can go less human or more human involvement, depending on the environment, depending on the context, the theater of operations, or the task it's performing. If it's just loitering and doing surveillance, that might be something totally different. And then next point is that I totally agree with you about, we do have to have trust as much as there's a lot of cynicism out there today. There's a lot of, fear and distrust, and politics has become, in some ways, people would say more competitive and bitter than ever. But I will say one of my teaching partners at the Command and Staff College, Marine Corps Command and Staff College, Dr. Brad Weinman, he said, you realize we had a civil war and you realize like politicians were shooting each other in the street and all these things. And he said it was, horrible right before the Civil War and then during
Yeah.
it. So in comparison to that, he had once told me this a few years back that we're not at that level.
At least we're
So,
not there,
yeah, thank God. But as far as the verbal weapons, yes, for sure, they're eating each other alive. But yeah, I do believe we have to have trust, though. I think it's very important. And they, like you said, they've taken those oaths and they're selling this technology to the government. And at some point, you have to build it the way you need to build it. And once you sell it, you do have to have that trust. I think it's very important. There's so many people that are involved in the process of employing these systems. And I think you can lose your damn mind being so distrustful, so cynical about everything that you'll get nothing done. Honestly, and that's one of the things we talk about in this podcast all the time too. Just a reminder in the audience, right? Why do we look at the news? Why do we look at what's going on, the current events? Okay. We do that because in strategy, we first have to understand the context, the domestic context, the international context, the political context. What is going on in your life? Okay. It's like in business, understanding the marketplace, the opportunities, the risks. Okay. The troops involved, terrain, the enemy, whether you're on a mission. Okay. If you're in a mission context, all these things, you have to know what the hell is going on. That's why we talk about all these things. But the final thing we talk about is you need to then figure out what's your mission, what do you want, what are you going to do about it, what is your strategy, and control the controllables. And this goes full circle back to what Andy's saying. You need to worry about what you can control. And so, and if you're worried about something that's out of your control, you're just going to sit there and you're going to hamstring yourself. You're going to, be stuck in the mud, all those things like that. So I think you said that really well. I just wanted to make that comment that I totally agree with what you're saying on that. So, okay. And another question here in line with this, but can we contrast, is this okay to contrast a little bit OpenAI for a minute and just, because this is your world and we're all just like out in the aquarium watching.
Yeah.
So while Anthropic's in this legal battle with the Pentagon, OpenAI just signed a major new deal with them. Does this signal a winner-take-all moment for companies that are willing to go all in on defense, or is something changing, or is it just exactly what you're saying, that there was just that one problem with that company and not much has changed?
I think that that was just one problem with that company. I think that I think you're going to see multiple frontier labs like deployed by the Department of War would be my guess.
Yeah.
I think, OpenAI, XAI, DeepMind, Anthropic all build these large language models, general purpose large language models, super powerful, like massive 70 billion parameter models. And they're great. They have a lot of use cases, but I mean, I would say, the hard piece is that large language models are quickly becoming a commodity where, the Department of War can pick we'll have all of them on the stack and users can pick which ones they like the best.
Right.
We're in a world where that's about to happen. They could all be deployed. I don't think it's a winner take all moment. I think that there are other players out there. I think that, again, I don't know what negotiations are happening, but from a capability perspective, they're quite similar in capability and all could fill that role.
Interesting. I appreciate that. That helps. As I read these headlines and I watch what's going on, that's not my world though. So, try to get as much insight as we can. We appreciate that. So let's talk a bit about, empowerment and catching the rising tide. And really a big thing we do here is in this channel is obviously the strategy all the way down to the personal level, personal strategy, personal performance, all those things like that. And so, you talk about, and would you say this, that instead of AI replacing a person, can you talk about it as an overlay? So it's almost something that's overlaying on top of everything. How can a regular person, whether a student or an entrepreneur or anybody, use AI as a rising tide to amplify their own talents rather than being replaced by it?
Yeah, I mean, the way I like to think of it is almost like you have a little robot assistant that's really good at I mean, for me, right, I write a lot. I was probably much better with words, even though I wish I'd been better at math. And so to me, I look at it's in the ability to do a lot of quantitative reasoning really quickly in a way that I certainly can. I'm sure there are people that can. And so I think a lot of it is you can. What I think that AI can help you do is basically churn through a lot of data and get a summary. To me, it's I'm never going to let AI write anything for me, but I'm a psychopath about my writing. So it writes nothing for me. But if I was a writer, I might let it. So because it does it reasonably well. I think. That said, though, what I do think you can use it for in general is there's so much information. It's really good at advanced search and summary to kind of help you hone in on key points that you can quickly get to I need to dig in here more. And then it kind of almost surfaces where do I need to kind of really deep dive as opposed to having to just, troll through all the info on your own to even get to the start point on that. So I think that is, I think it's really, really good at that. It's really, really good at writing summary reports. And I mean, I think it's probably hard for like individuals to kind of set up their own like agentic workflows. But if you think about like you have like this monotonous workflow that you need to do, there's certainly app companies making it easy to buy and set these types of things up where I can, if I know the steps in the workflow and the kind of like when the workflow needs to start, I can use AI to help set up this like monotonous thing that takes me a ton of time and it just like runs and runs. And then it feeds me again back to the human interface, right? It feeds me the answers that I can check and be like, yes, that's right. But it can just take like a lot of the long tasks
Yeah.
to do repeatedly and like and just automate getting them to the solution for you to check. And I think that there's more and more companies building applications. Granted, probably more for like businesses, but I'm sure some are coming out for like individuals that can let you set up your own like life workflows where you're using and I mean I
Right,
have
right.
peers that have done it, but they know kind of how to write it. And I guess like
And then
the
starting a
this
business too.
yeah, I mean, and I think the third piece of this is, I mean, Claude Code is like fantastic, right? So what used to be this thing that only a software engineer could do, now like a wider range of, regular people can build an app, right?
It's incredible. It's really incredible.
And so you can
I can remember once working with somebody that was telling me they were having an app built. This is a few years ago. They were $700,000 into developing this app. I mean, and I'm telling you, this is the number that was quoted to me, and I thought this is insane. For probably 4 or 5 years ago, and that just seems insane today when you have, like you said, cloud app and all these things.
And so to me, I think it's like the thing that you're really, really good at as a human, like you're not going to try and like replace with AI. And I don't think that AI is like ready to replace like as many things as I feel like you hear in the news. But I would say you can kind of use it to set up, your tooling for your life so you spend more time on the thing that like you're uniquely good at and you don't have to like spend as much time doing, the things that could be automated. And I think
Right.
that's really one of the beauties of the coding function that it has is you can kind of build the tool, like you can build all these little tools to help like speed your life up.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think too, like for people in the audience too, we have a lot of, young entrepreneurs and older entrepreneurs out there as well. But people that are trying to create something and maybe, whether they have a service business, whatever it is, but, please everybody explore some of these tools Andy's talking about. You don't know until you try. You really don't. And one of the things we talk about too is very simple stuff. Block off some time on a Saturday though, and open these up and explore these things out there. Pick one, learn how to use it, see how it applies to you. And you could, instead of having, let's say if you're an entrepreneur and you have a team, or you're an entrepreneur of one, you're a solopreneur right now, and you're trying to build something, instead of having to hire all these people, you can probably have agentic AI helping you so much, or help you to be a super empowered solopreneur where it's like you're performing at the pace and strength of someone and productivity of someone that has a team of 5 or 6 or 10. So, and do you think that's a correct thing to say?
100%.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So get after it, guys. There's a lot of amazing just things to know we're talking about today, but there are also some really concrete tactical takeaways for you here as well. And so, yeah, please just dig into this and replay it again if you have to. Andy's got a lot of great things to say. Well, let's talk about this now. This is the $32 million question. This is the big one. And we had a lot of those moments, but right now you just raised 32 million, dude. This is like crazy stuff. And to scale Smack, you've raised this money. And to do that, this isn't something you just step into, you just do. You've had to have some formidable daily habits, mindset, confidence, overcoming doubt, overcoming fear. And like I said, I've coached entrepreneurs before, tech startups, things like that. I know, I've heard the stories. I'm going to lunch with somebody, I get hit by the wall. This billionaire said no. This one said yes. This one said no. This one said yes, and they said no. And so there's constant starts and stops and all these things like that. From what I know, your experience might have been win-win-win the whole time, but what what daily habits or disciplines keep you focused and then also optimistic? Because when I poll my audience, I will get the poll. One of the biggest problems we have is feeling overwhelmed, doubt, or feeling like they're unsure what to do next. And the daily grind's beating them down. So how do you stay focused and optimistic when the stakes for yourself, for your company, and our country are so high?
Yeah, I was just there's two like in some ways like different pieces. I feel like a lot of what everyone's always like, what's your superpower? And I'm like I can like live in the orange for like a really really long time.
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
that's
I've seen you actually.
I don't know that that's healthy, But it is something that like the Marine Corps, I think, is like really good at creating people that can do that. And so I guess I'd say, on the one hand, being able to live in the orange, or being productively paranoid. I mean, I would say, one of the things that kind of help has been useful, even though it's like this is not the kind of like optimism side. I'll get to that in a minute. It's just this like assuming that until you know that something is like closed and done, that like something is broken, and you're constantly trying to figure out
Right.
like what is broken and where. And I mean, that's a lot of the daily life on the team, to be honest, is this like wake up in the morning, like what is broken, like and trying to figure. And it's much the same as you would do in command in the military, right? Like you're trying to
Yeah.
search the point of friction. A lot of like, I think, success in this space is knowing that like there are probably multiple points of friction. If there aren't, you just don't know about them yet, and you're constantly trying to find them so that you can move and repair them. And I think a lot of how I think about trying to set, going forward, is how can I basically be more free to move to all the places that could need work, as opposed to having been stuck and like I have to be the contributor for this one thing or it doesn't happen. And some of that's just like a growth, like across the start. When you start out and there's like three people in the company, people are both an individual contributor, and you're trying to triage like where are the joints that are connected and broken. But I feel like a lot of my life now is really trying to have, people that I trust that can run like different segments
Right.
of the business, so that I can be free to
Right.
move and like surge on the stuff that's broken. So I feel like that like ability to live in the orange, productive paranoia, like I don't like, a lot of people don't want to hear that like that's what's required, but I just think that it is. I don't know
How do you build that though? How do you build the ability to live in the orange, would you say?
how
So and everybody was talking about the threat spectrum from white, yellow, or white, green, yellow, then they say red, but between yellow and red is orange, which is
yeah.
Andy saying at the RPMs are around 8,000,
I,
8 out of 10.
I do think that it's a thing you have to develop over time, and I don't
Okay.
think it's like happens quickly. And I think, I was lucky, military helped me with this a lot, but you get like this concept of like getting like stress tested, or like, stress proofed or whatever. But like you have to
Right.
have really hard experiences. And,
Right.
or like you have to be able to absorb one really hard experience really, really quickly. But you just build up reps over time of I've been through some really hard stuff. I came out okay. I've been through some more hard stuff that's even harder. I came out okay. And I think over time, as long as you seek out those, like, don't avoid really hard things where like you could fail. Like you have to be okay with failure. If you're not okay with failure, you shouldn't try this, because like again, any startup you start is more likely to fail than to succeed. I mean, that's just like the math, right? And so like you build up reps of having really, really difficult, painful experiences that you have come
Yeah.
out and learned from and been fine. And then you have this whole library of those experiences where you look back and like, this probably isn't the worst thing that's ever happened to me, so I guess it'll be fine. And like I think like that's where a lot of the confidence comes from. Is and people say this. You see a lot of UFC fighters say, the I won the belt like during training, and then I'm just going to collect it in the ring. It's kind of the
Right.
same deal, right? Like I've had enough like really, really hard experiences in the past by just taking the opportunity to have them and learn from it, that like you have this bank where like I'm confident that whatever happens today is going to be
Yeah.
the worst thing that ever happened to me, and it'll be
But
fine.
let me ask you this too. So what if somebody out there in the audience right now is at that point where they've they haven't they're hitting the point where this might be the worst experience ever? What do you say to that person as a leader? Like what would advice would you give them if they're like, you know what, I've done hard stuff before, but I don't know how I'm in this situation, but I'm in this situation. What would you tell them?
I think it's really important to have like a mentor and to have advisors. And I mean, here, right? Like, I mean, I didn't know, I've literally never raised money before. Like, I
Right.
had no idea like what funder, like I didn't know anything about this. And so you've got to have people you trust that you can ask. And I think, and often, at least here, right? Like when I think about like what's the worst day I've had like in Smack in the business, I've been lucky, and some of this is just we've been lucky with like the investors we brought on. Like the first call that I make has often been like our investors, and they're the ones that have helped us. But like you have to have that mentor who can help guide you to like, hey, here's what you need to do. Hey, I've seen this before. This isn't that bad. You'll be fine. But you
Right.
you gotta have an advisor or mentor for something
Get
that's like
outside help.
you've experienced before.
Yeah, get
Uh,
outside help. That's very good advice. Because a lot of times I'll hear from people, just keep going. You're going through hell, keep going. And that's true, but I agree with you. Call for air support, call for an
yeah.
airstrike, call for support for the QRF, all those things. That's great. It's very sound advice. And everyone, I hope you're listening out there because, and I know someone out there right now is hitting that hardest, lowest point where Some things are controllable, some things aren't controllable. You may have lost loved ones, you may have had a huge financial setback. Maybe you had an illness, because as I've heard before, the problems that money can't solve are some real problems. And you got to know that, yes, if you're going through hell, keep going. But on top of that, like Andy's saying, so important to have someone to talk to, just someone that can guide you, someone that has your best interest, of service, fiduciary responsibility, right, in mind. So, and I see we got some hearts in the chat. I appreciate you guys. Best chat in YouTube. And that's the thing. Keep going, please, Andy. This is gold.
I was going to say on that, I mean, I do think one of the things that you can do proactively is be very clear with yourself about like what you are good at and what you're not, and what you have experience in a library of like hard experiences where you've navigated and what you don't. And I mean, a lot of when we look at raising more money, the question you always get asked, like, what are you looking for in the next round of investor? And like, ideally, you're looking for investors that have experience with the thing that you're not good at and have no experience with, which, when we started SMAC was like everything. But I think, more like candidly, like, how do you sell to the Department of War? The original investors we brought on, like really, really savvy on like, how do you actually go to market for defense? Now, like, as we're starting to scale and grow, it's like, how do you scale the workforce without blowing up like the company's like values? Like, how do you scale like your value? Like, how do you scale
Right.
with like, as you become a company that was like 5 to 18 to 20 to 100? There's like
Right.
different things that are going to blow up that I've never experienced. And there are different sets of investors that are like really, really good at that. And you want to seek those people out. I think it's the same in your personal life, even if you're not running a company. What are you good at? What are you not good at? What are you trying to do? And who has the experience in the thing that you definitely don't know how to handle, and
Right.
how to really
Right.
that day would be really lost. You want to just be proactive, like bring those people into your circle so you can call them, and that's the thing that you can do ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a value too. Bring those people into your circle so you can call them. And that requires you to reach out. I mean, we're talking about the basics here, but I'm telling you, a lot of the time, success in life, the basic things, spending time to get on the phone call, reaching out to people, trying to make connections. This is one of the greatest forms of wealth you can have as well, too, our personal connections, relationships, spending time building relationships. And then also being, humble enough, and not even humble enough, I would say being brave enough to ask someone, hey, I need help. And if you can't help me, can you tell me, or, you don't have time or energy, whatever, can you tell me where I should go? And if they tell you, hey, go take this course, go do it. Go
Yeah.
do it. There's so much out there, but you got to really light a fire under your butt and make those connections. And it might seem scary at first sometimes to build that, but it's going to pay off. I mean, you're hearing it from the horse's mouth here. Okay, everybody, this is like mega. He's just getting started. The dude raised $32 million and just getting started. So listen, you're getting some great word from Andy Markoff here, and it's huge. So please, if you take nothing away, take that away. Find someone that can help you. It's so important. Please keep going, Andy. Sorry.
I kind of circling back to like, how do you stay like optimistic or whatever? I mean, I think the way that I frame it for myself is not, I don't know that I like seek to kind of feel optimistic, but it's more like I feel like I seek to be like at peace and I'm working on the right thing, and that like
Yeah.
no matter what happens, like if I do everything I can, that there was nothing for me. There's a lot of like, what I struggled most with is this feeling of like guilt around like, are you working on the right thing? Did you do everything that you could do? And like what I'm always seeking to feel good generally is you're working on the thing that you're supposed to be doing. You're doing everything you can. What happens will happen, but you shouldn't be doing anything different. Like that for me, like in my
Yeah,
brain,
it's a
like
great
that's what
feeling.
I'm trying to always solve for.
Totally agree with you.
My
'Cause
own
that's the thing. Entrepreneurship is scary too. It's
um,
scary. There's no
yeah,
net.
it is, and so I think for me, that's where like the kind of coming back to the sense of mission is if I'm not in one of those periods of life where I'm just like working on myself, but like this is like the thing I need to like I have to come back to like, is this the right mission that I'm like uniquely that like aligns with my values, that I am like uniquely good at, and like that that I enjoy. I'm like trying to find those three things. I mean, for me, I come back to Smack and like yeah, like it like hits those buckets. And if I look back at myself, I'm like I did like everything that I could do. Um, then I'm at peace with all of that. And I think like
Right.
that's really what I personally want, is the peace that I'm working on the thing that I'm supposed to be working on. I'm doing everything I can, and I can't control everything, but I'll control the things that I can do. And like I think the satisfaction comes from that for me.
I
And
love that. I love it. That is perfect for what we do here in this channel. It's perfect for what I do as an executive coach, as well too. I mean, these are all the things that I teach, and I firmly believe in that, and that's my own personal philosophy as well too. Is just that control the controllables, and do everything I can for the thing I'm working on. And I will say, more often than not, you're going to have some success when you do that. If you really look yourself in the mirror and say, "Have I done everything?" And I
yeah,
first learned this from my brother. My brother Nick's a brilliant dude, like literally, very brilliant. And I was talking to him about school and something. I think I was at the Naval Academy going through classes. And I was like, I can't figure this out. I was in electrical engineering or something. And he just said to me very simply, he said, "Well, did you do all the homework?" I'm like, "Well, no." He's like, Did you read every page in the syllabus?" I said, "No." He's like, "Well, do that and then see how it goes." And he was right. It was right. It was like very simple. I did everything I could do, was supposed to. The controllables. Was it a lot of work? Ton. Now I didn't get a great grade or anything like that, but it was a lot better. A lot better. And electrical engineering was a particular beatdown for me. But all the
yeah,
other classes definitely went up for that. But and honestly, so I'm using that as a rubric, right? As something that's controlled. But in life, when you set out on, growing a company, improving your life in some way, shape, or form, you do have to look at what you can control and have I done everything? Or am I
yeah.
wasting a lot of time? Like you said, be very honest with yourself. What are you good at? What you're not good at? All those things. This is very inspiring. Honestly, it's fantastic and it's great for the audience. Keep going, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think on that, there's, what I feel like one of my favorite quotes that I heard in the Marine Corps was from one of my 81's section leaders who said, even the laws of physics can be overcome with a little motivation, which is I feel like a very important mantra for everything, right?
That's
But
it. Mind over matter. If you don't
yeah,
mind, it don't
exactly.
matter.
And that's actually the scary thing. That's actually one of our values at SMAC. But
I love it.
I think the reality is, yeah, I mean, obviously, like physics or physics, I mean, like at some point, like they actually do come into play, and like the world abides by them. But I think that most people stop well short of like doing everything, and I do
Yeah,
think like a
for
lot of
sure.
things in life, um, if you work hard enough and you keep pushing, you actually will achieve what you want. Like sometimes you don't, and like as long as you did everything you could and you're working on the right stuff, like you can be at peace with that. But I think like most of the time, like there is a way. You just have to kind of find it and kind of keep going. I think a lot of people like end up like stopping short. But I
I think
do
you're so right.
those
That's a
things.
very powerful
Even
thing. I mean,
learning, right? I mean, like even if it's like I'm not good at this thing, well, you probably can learn it over time. If
growth
you,
mindset.
yeah,
I love that. I mean, I absolutely love it. That is fantastic. I could listen to you about that all day because that is gold, such gold. And I know obviously you've always been a fantastic leader, and you've got Clint there too, another powerhouse leader.
my
And boy, oh boy, Smack is going to go to the moon, man. You guys are going to dominate and be amazing with the two of you there and your mindset. But again, everybody, like I talk about all the time, the mindset matters so much. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with, entrepreneurs, whatever you want to say, leaders in their industry, C-suite executives, athletes, celebrities. The common theme I've seen is vision and mindset amongst the most successful people I've worked with. And here we are again, with Andy's talking about is this mindset and the vision and the mission, but the attitude that, doing everything you can and then being at peace, doing the right things. But again, so much is in our attitude and focusing on the controllables, but then really going all in and going for it and not giving yourself excuses. It ain't gonna be easy. I'll tell you that much. It's not gonna be easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. So this any saved rounds on that, Andy?
no, no. I mean, and I think if you want to start a company and you can kind of develop that mindset. I mean, I do think that's like what a lot of like what of I will at least say that I feel like a lot of our investors like when they tell me like what is it that we invested in, I was like, well, like everyone told me that you were really really good at chewing glass, and like we love people that like can chew glass, and I'm like I didn't realize that like that was the attribute that I brought to the table that was most compelling. But
That's what's going around.
I do think that that is that is really what's, to be able to just like look in the dark, chew the glass, and like, and then figure it out. But again, like to me, there's nothing I'd rather be doing if I'm on mission at the thing that like I feel like I'm uniquely good at doing. And I think like if that's lined up, then that then
Love
that
it.
then I can then like
That's it. That's it. I love it. I love it. Well, we have a tradition here on the show where the last guest gets to leave a question for the current guest. And our last guest, everybody remembers, War Room podcast superstar, the founder of the Green Beret Chronicles, a great entrepreneur as well too, and also the founder of Dark Arts Coffee, Jay Dorlius. He left a final question for you. And the question is, when you are 80 years old, what is the meaning of success when you look back at your life from that perspective?
I mean, to me, it comes back to like I always start with like, what is the thing that you have like unique, like very unique skills to be able to deliver, and it kind of comes back. I say I won't speak for Clamp other than we've talked about this. So to me, it is the whole like warrior. Like I am here. I was made to help, protect like our country's like allies and partners. That's what I was like put on the earth to do. And there are certain aspects like around that, integrating a bunch of different, capabilities in order to deliver solutions for that is probably the thing that I'm like uniquely good at, because I'm able to learn enough to be deep across a wide range of things to integrate them. And so I think like I'm a good integrator. And I want to look back and be like, I worked on that throughout my life. I delivered on that in a way that was meaningful, in a way that I was uniquely good at, so I could make the most value for being here, and that I was able to do that in the service of others. But I think to me, service is really the only like actually meaningful thing to do. And I think like I feel lucky to be able to serve in this way that I feel that I'm good at. And I want to look back and be like, the theme through my life is that I always found the opportunity to do that.
I love that. I love that. That's something we talk a lot about again here on the channel, and then also in my coaching membership and community. We talk about becoming your highest and best self to bring your very best self to serve, in order to serve the world, serve your community, serve your loved ones, serve the people that you lead and love. So, I mean, that's fantastic, very powerful. And it's one of the most important things to leading a good life too. So, and feeling that satisfaction, that joy, the inner peace, like you said, is knowing that, you are serving, and this is truly self-actualization from Abraham Maslow, right? To pursue becoming the person that you can become. This is self-actualization. So actually awesome. I love that. And so now it's your turn. We're going to pass the torch here. And what is one question you want to leave for our next guest to answer?
Ooh. Let me think about that. I'm always actually curious, like what people think is kind of like the most necessary technology that like is being underdeveloped right now.
Okay.
That should be invested in more, that like people should be working on. I mean, like everyone's like focused on, AI. There's a lot of like, AI for warfare. I mean, obviously that's what I'm focused on. But I'm always curious about like what people's perspective is on like the most, underfunded, underdeveloped, like underhyped technology that like we actually need, that like no one is working on.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a great question. Whoever's going to get that one's going to be stumped for sure. Hopefully, it's not going to be a disappointing answer. But Andy, it's been such a pleasure to have you on, man. You've given so many fantastic insights, and I appreciate so much you sharing so much about your life and your company, your personal philosophy, your mindset, and creating some inspiration and some motivation, and just giving us a fantastic interview. So thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
The pleasure is all mine, all ours. And everybody, appreciate you all out there. Chat, you guys, best chat on YouTube. Appreciate you guys. This will be posted up soon. And again, we're going to be live on Friday night, as always, 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific. And also, if you have not liked, subscribed, and shared this yet, please do so. Again, thank you so much, Andy. Such a pleasure to have you here, man. This was absolutely awesome. Share this with your friends. There's so much gold here from Andy, and you're getting it from the real deal. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.